you some specific insight and education into containerized software and the technology surrounding that. So let's get our heads together on the same page with some industry standard definitions so we can discuss the technology more easily. Okay. What's a bare metal server? Well, it's a real piece of hardware that you own and or operate. Telos uses the term bare metal server to separate it from a virtual server or a cloud server. A bare metal server is a piece of hardware in your possession. It also indicates that the server in its initial state doesn't have any operating system installed. We're starting from scratch with just hardware and an empty hard drive. All right, so what do we mean when we say the cloud? Cloud computing is that on-demand availability of computer system resources, especially data, storage, and computing power, without direct active management by the user of the underlying PC or virtual infrastructure. The term is generally used to describe data centers available to many users over the internet, like Amazon Web Services, AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure. What about the difference between public cloud and private cloud? Well, cloud services are considered public when they're delivered over the public internet and available to anyone to purchase for public use. Private cloud is that cloud infrastructure that's operated solely for a single organization, whether it's managed internally or externally by a third party, and hosted, again, either internally or externally. So what's Linux? Well, Linux is that family of open source Unix-like operating systems. Popular versions of Linux have some names you may have heard of: Ubuntu, Debian, Fedora, CentOS or CentOS. Commercial versions include Red Hat and SUSE. Ubuntu is Telos's preferred distribution of Linux, but advanced users are welcome to choose another Linux distribution. So what's a virtual machine? Well, it's a full computer, but it's made of software. A virtual machine, or VM, is the emulation of a computer system. Virtual machines are software representations of a physical computer. Now, this allows a single piece of hardware, a server typically, to perform the function of multiple computers by having multiple VMs instantiated on them. How about a hypervisor? What's that? Well, a hypervisor, or often called a virtual machine monitor, is a kind of computer software that creates and runs virtual machines. Now, a computer on which a hypervisor runs or more virtual machines runs, that's called a host machine. So that bare metal is the host machine. And each virtual machine is called a guest machine. Since a single computer can contain many VMs, the hypervisor is the software that manages all those VMs. Now, earlier I spoke of a Type 1 and a Type 2 hypervisor. Just to give you another visual look at what that means, a Type 1 hypervisor is where you have the hardware, and then you have the hypervisor running on that, like VMware, and then you have your operating systems on top of that. One of them could be Linux, which is then running Docker and the containers. The Type 2 hypervisor is where you have a computer running maybe either Windows or Mac, and on top of that you run a hypervisor like maybe Parallels or a VirtualBox, and then you run an OS on top of that. That's not good. That's not what we want. We don't get enough, we have too much, maybe not overhead, but too much underfoot going on to perform real-time broadcast applications. So don't even think about that size.